Hello, everybody. My name is Katira Winfrey. I'm a reporter here at Wish TV, and I'm proud to serve as the moderator for today's panel. As you know, this is the InnoPower Minority Business Week, and already it's only, Wednesday, and we've already experienced some great conversations and some great events talking about promoting minority business in Indiana and wherever you are. So I am pleased to moderate this panel where we're calling Leveraging HBCUs as a Diversity Pipeline to Your Company. So if you don't know, HBCUs are what we call historically Black colleges and universities, and how businesses can take students and leverage the experiences and bring them into their companies as we talk about equity and diversity in the job market. So I'm not alone here on this panel. I'm not alone. I'm just the person talking and hopefully trying to help get this conversation going. So before we keep on going any farther, I'm going to take some time to stop and introduce you to our panelists, and I will introduce them one at a time. First, we're going to start with Marcus Johnson. Marcus Johnson is is an employee at Lead Digital Solutions and is a graduate from the Howard University.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Johnson. I'm currently Digital Solutions Lead at Flex Solutions. Graduated from Howard in 2001, and one of the things that that I can think of with regards to HBCUs and how they benefited me was essentially the being able to walk learn from people who are walking a path that's similar to that I'm walking now, is to be able to leverage their experiences. And so it was more than just getting a degree, but just being around like people and being able to leverage their experiences and apply it to the path that I was going on with my career.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, Marcus. And now we're going to slide on over to Chandria Seaton. She is with Eli Lilly and Company and a graduate of Florida. Let me put the Florida A&M. Let me get it right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Katira. And it's great to be here and amongst these amazing panelists. So yes, as she said, I am Chandria Seaton. I am with Eli Lilly and Company for the past 15 years. And absolutely, hands down, my HBCU and all the others, very valuable. In fact, FAMU comes heavily recruited by multiple companies. The first company that I started was 3M. They came and recruited me directly from FAMU, and then I found my way over to Eli Lilly and Company. And again, strategically, they recruit from Florida A&M and other HBCUs. Why? Because that return on investment is great. And I wouldn't take my HBCU experience for anything in the world.
All right. And so then we're going to slide on over to Decatur Webster. Decatur Webster also works with Eli Lilly and Company and is a graduate of the North Carolina A&T.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katira, and hello, everyone. As Katira said, my name is Decatur Webster, and I am an IT leader manager at Eli Lilly and Company. I am a 2001 computer science graduate of the North Carolina A&T State University. And like many have said on this panel, the HBCU experience for me has been phenomenal and has been a catalyst both in my career and in my personal development. It has been an experience like none other. It was one rich in culture, rich in history, but also one that aligned with my personal belief, values, and mission. And because of that, I was able to connect also with a company that aligned with the same values, mission, and belief. So it has been a win-win for me all over, and truly believe that I was in the right place at the right time for this season. So thank you for having me, Katira.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And finally, we will go to Terry Morris, who also works with Eli Lilly and is also a graduate of the Florida A&M.
Well, thank you for having me today. I promise to be on my best behavior, but when you have me going behind an Aggie, it makes it truly difficult. But I'm an advisor for racial justice at Eli Lilly and Company. I've been there for 20 years. I chose FAMU because of its mission, excellence in caring. And I will take it up a bit and say that this is resident in the many HBCUs that I've
Katira, you're on mute. We can't hear anything.
Thank you. I did all that. I said you might hear some mute. If you unmute it, you may reduce some feedback because I just heard some of that. And that's why I muted myself. So I introduced everyone, but I forgot to say that I also am an HBCU graduate. I graduated from Texas Southern University in 2009 with a degree in communications with a focus on broadcast journalism. I'm still on mute?
I can hear you.
With a focus on broadcast journalism. So just like everyone else said, I'd like to echo that, just the value in an HBCU education. I totally enjoyed my experience, and I think it's what I learned there that's kind of helped me shift into this role that I'm in now. So we'll go ahead and get started. I hear still a little bit more feedback, so I do apologize if that's going to interrupt anyone. So we have a lot of folks that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to say this right off the top. Although everyone works for these amazing companies, the things we talk about are going to be from them. This is not in representation of the companies that they work for. They just happen to be there, but whatever we talk about today is going to be their direct thoughts. So we don't want to correlate that back. So we'll go ahead and get started. I know we had a couple of people who worked on the IT departments in their job. So I'll kind of go to that first. STEM, that's the way of the world now. If you're looking for a stable career, STEM fields, engineering fields, those are the ones that, you know, people are trying to recruit more minorities and people of color. Talk about how just how valuable HBCU roles or HBCUs play in educating people that go into those fields, and why it's important for companies to look there when they're looking to recruit. And Chandra, in your introduction, you mentioned how you were recruited, and forgive me if Decatur, you also were. Talk about how that played into your, how exciting was that to be a part of that, or how exciting was it to know that when you came out of school, you were going to have a place to work?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. It was exciting, absolutely exciting to know that the hard work that I put into my coursework, and then certainly the hard work that my professors put into it as well, would be recognized and very much valued. I remember the interview that I had with 3M, and they were very much interested in bringing me on. And it was exciting. I was at the time a junior and going off on my first internship, and they welcomed me with open arms. Never would I thought that I would have been in the Twin Cities, but it was a great experience. And I know hands down that, you know, my Florida A&M education prepared me very well. Many of our professors, they were pretty strict about making sure we were valuing our classwork and putting forth a good effort. They didn't want to see mediocrity. That was not at all what they wanted to see. In fact, they wanted to make sure you were excelling. So I think that extra nurturing and that type of environment where you are around others that look like you and are like-minded, but also that are very much very similar in ambition, right? See, Black excellence and doing our best. That was something that was very much attractive to many corporations, 3M being one of them, and of course my current corporation. But hands down, I absolutely felt elated to go and soar.
Absolutely. I can piggyback off of that. So North Carolina A&T being engineering and its technical components being one of the focal points of the university, I can tell you that the leadership and staff there harped on making sure that we were not only prepared to survive, but prepared to thrive throughout the different industries, because we all know that every industry today is fueled by IT in some way, form, or fashion. And so they wanted to make sure there that there was a gamut of choices that we were able to explore, understanding that the opportunities would be endless if we just had the core and simple component of IT. And so from basic to core to some of the specialized classes, A&T did a wonderful job, not just preparing the students, but also making sure that they had company buy-in to ensure that we were well up to date on our courses, our curriculum, that to be able to enter corporate America and any other environment and ensure that our education was aligned with the current industry needs, as well as some of the future needs that the organizations would have. So I think it was great, and that the company, the organization, the university all stayed well in tune as to the happenings. And because of that, as a byproduct of that, we were ready when it was time to be recruited.
And Marcus, so you are a graduate of Howard University. You are in the technical field. Talk about what that was like for you entering, going to an HBCU. Was there any concern that people would take that education seriously, or what was that like for you?
Thank you for the question. And not at all. I wasn't even remotely concerned. I know going into Howard with the school's reputation, I wasn't, deterred by anything of saying that, I went to Howard as opposed to going to say, like a more technical, even more like another school, say like an MIT or something like that. And so that thought never crossed my mind. And by the time I started at Howard and by the time I finished, I was I was certainly confident that, like, okay, regardless of where I go in my IT career, that I had a good foundation from the things that I've learned at Howard and from my professors and my other mentors, and even from my classmates. I knew that I would be good, going venturing out into my field.
And just looking at some of the statistics that I pulled up, you talk about they say 40% of all STEM degrees, HBCUs confer them. And some people may see that as a shock, but that just plays also into the value of the education and the skill set. What do you have to say to people who may be concerned if HBCUs are providing the same education, or would you say it's an even better one, or on the same ground?
I would say that they would, I would say they probably shouldn't be too concerned about that, mainly because the thing is that, a lot of times, people like HBCUs confer so many technical degrees, and, they and then sometimes, there's like cases where people may not, a lot of people in the mainstream really aren't aware of that. And, just being able to make, you have to really make sure that you, that you kind of essentially have to do your part just to, HBCUs have to essentially do their part to make it, to really make it known that, hey, we have all of these candidates that are coming out of here, and they're essentially top notch, and they can do all of the type of work that that's required in a lot of these fields. And it's it's just it's just one of those things where as long as HBCUs and as long as the students that are coming out of there are doing what they do and are producing in their respective fields, then I think it'll be a lot better in the long run as to a lot of these companies realizing that, hey, this person came from this HBCU, and we know what they're capable of and what they're able to do.
Right. And can I just add to that just a little bit too? I think Marcus is exactly right. And also something I want to point out that Decatur said earlier, there is not one industry that the foundation of it isn't powered by technology. And so given that, the landscape is vast, and HBCUs are poised and ready in developing more top talent into those pipelines. And so I absolutely take hands down that HBCUs are on par and sometimes even better than our PWIs, because not only is the curriculum robust, but then you also have that extra nurturing, that extra, hey, I want you to give it your all, and kind of that playground to continue to grow and develop and even be more ready than some of our majority counterparts. So I say hands down, absolutely, HBCUs are ready and poised. And also, I'd also, say that, hands down, we, of course, are ready, but oftentimes we come in and we're ready to excel and take on even the most technical opportunities. And so it is certainly up to those companies to bring relevant opportunities to us, because we're ready.
Yeah, and just going off of something Marcus said about HBCUs making a commitment to work with those businesses, Decatur or Terry, chime in on workplaces' commitment to recruiting and retaining talent.
Yeah, so for me, I think just kind of looking across the different spectrum of organizations, there's always a mission to attract talent. I think where there's a gap is the retention piece. We understand, just in life in general, what got you there may not be the thing that keep you there. And I think it's the same thing with graduates from any university, but especially from HBCUs. I can tell you the HBCUs are one of the most diverse institutions that one can attend. That's because, one, they open the doors to everyone, but also their focus is on diversity in thought, diversity in character, and so on. So there's a special emphasis on diversity at HBCUs. Now, when we reach back to looking across the different companies that may recruit at HBCUs, it's a sense that that they're coming looking for you. Because at HBCUs, you know what you're going to get. And for organizations who are priding themselves on, one, diversified talent, innovation, we think about all innovation stems from diverse thought. And what better school, institution, place, or pool of people to go to than an HBCU who has a diverse candidate pool of expertise. So I would say for companies, it's critical, because as a company looks to grow their product, their service, their offerings, diversity is going to be key. And the pool of diverse talent and the focus that HBCUs have on diversity, I think is key to any company's success, whether it be current or whether it's building that pipeline. And again, it's going to be key to changing and relooking at that strategy on a frequent basis, because again, what got the HBCU graduates in the doors may not be the thing that keeps them there. So relooking at strategy is going to be key, and truly making that part of the mission, not just to attract, but also to retain.
And I think that segues perfectly into you, Terry, when you talk about racial justice in the workforce. And as Decatur just mentioned, keeping diversity. When you go to an HBCU, diversity is kind of built into the fabric of it. And when we go into a lot of companies, how you may miss some of that. So how does culture, workplace morale factor in building on that diversity and showing people that everybody is welcome in this place?
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you. One of the shifts that's happening currently is this acknowledgement that equity is as important as diversity and inclusion. You see this occurring structurally in many companies by adding equity as a part of the expectation of the worlds that do this work, the diversity equity and inclusion shops. Many of the leaders even call that. I think that, while HBCUs got it a long time ago, that equity gets at the notion of not everybody's lived experience is the same, and they may have had barriers on their journey that we need to help address on the front end to ensure that they successfully evolve on the back end of their matriculation through college. HBCUs were built on that philosophy. They didn't call it that, but that was just in the DNA of the institutions. Well, companies are now beginning to embrace that notion and that acknowledgement that maybe we need to deploy different interventions for different people because their experiences are different. And so that's what's happening. And I actually think that companies that are leaning into the partnerships with historically Black colleges are finding ways to fold that, bring them into their worlds to experience that more real time. HBCUs, in a period where enrollments are dropping at academic institutions, HBCUs enrollment is increasing, in part because there is this renewed interest in bringing in this talent that can help accelerate solutioning through. Decatur said it best. I mean, innovative thought requires diverse workforces. I think all of this is melding together to create a unique opportunity for growth and development at these institutions.
And that's interesting because in light of this last year with what we saw with protest and the constant push for equity and diversity, we've seen, you talk about the increase in students going to HBCUs, you see the increase of athletes, top tier athletes choosing HBCUs when others may think that's a little odd. Now that we're having these conversations about race and equity and things of that nature, businesses have been taking extra strides to incorporate that into their workforce. But a lot of times there is this fear, is this for the moment? Do you all hope or do you fear that this is for the moment, or is it your hope that, this is the start of something good?
It really kind of depends. That can go both ways, because essentially, you can have, like, say, some companies that say that kind of thing, for the in the moment, and and it essentially ends up being lip service. They're like, oh yeah, we're about this, for right now, but then X amount of time down the line, they're back to operating the way they used to. Whereas on the flip side, you have other companies that can say that, hey, we see what's going on right now. We're going to make sure that, we're going to do this and stick with it, and then, actually make some type of change going forward. So it's really kind of hard to say. It really depends on, say, specific companies, where some, may do it for lip services, and others actually may go about implementing some type of real change.
I agree with Jason. The way I have approached this game, and I'm in this world as my day job now, is I've really decided not to focus on that question, but just stay keenly focused on structural changes that will reset the culture of an organization. Because that's ultimately, what will lead to sustained impact. Going after processes, going after systems that have been the barrier to progress for people of color. And so it can be a moment if we don't stay focused on the barriers that led to the current state. But if we actually go after the barriers and ensure that they are more equity conscious, then we can have a chance at this not just being a moment, but a movement.
And I think it's going to really be individualized to the different companies to really assess if they want this to be a moment or if they want this to be a movement. Those who want it to be a moment will do and put temporary fixes in place, band-aids, if you will. But those who are truly committed to forward movement and really enhancing their service, their offerings, their product, it has to be woven into their mission. It has to be woven into everything that they do. It has to be a lifestyle, a way of conduct for that company. It has to become a norm. And I think it's going to be critical because the more and more the world around us changes, those companies who are not forward facing, forward moving, I think are going to be behind the ball because innovation, IT, diversity, all those things are working together. And at the core is diversity. So absent diversity from the equation, I'm not sure how much success a company would experience if diversity in thought, diversity in workforce, diversity in integration overall, they will be behind the curve.
One thing that I spoke to someone a few weeks ago on another panel that talked about diversity in different places, and they said often recruiters or managers go for what they're used to, or if they look like this, then I'm familiar with this. This is comfortable for me. Have you found that to be the case? And if so, what would you say to encourage a business to say, hey, step out of your comfort zone just because they don't have the same school name next to their degree or because they don't look like a certain way? Take a step out of what's comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that to be the case. And so the challenge, or what I do in terms of just challenging my white counterparts is that, hey, we are colleagues. I am a Black female. Obviously, I know of others, right? We can make sure there is diversity, right? In whatever you're looking for. No longer should there be the thought of, well, I just can't find diverse talent. That's absolutely not true. It just happens to take maybe just another step, maybe a little extra energy to seek that out. And then the challenge is diversify your network. Your network should not look all like you. My network shouldn't just be other people like me. In fact, I'm very intentional about making sure that it doesn't. And so the challenge to others, majority members, make sure you are intentional about diversifying your network. And the floodgates open up. Amazing.
I don't know if anyone else would like to chime in if that's been their experience of that. Recruiters and management tend to go for the people who fit into their to their image. If they've experienced that, and what kind of role you play in your job or just day-to-day life in trying to help change that.
Yeah, I think there's pockets of that because there are some teams, some organizations who are looking to sustain, and there's others who are looking to grow. Sustaining means status quo. I'm going to go with what's familiar, what's comfortable, what's convenient, what's always been there. But growth, there's some level of discomfort, some level of unfamiliarity there. And so if you truly are with an organization or a team or manager or whatever the case may be who wants to grow, then you embrace change. You embrace the differences because change only comes about where there's differences. And so again, it comes back to that assessment as to you as a leader really position yourself to take a true assessment as to, do I want to change or do I want to sustain? Because there's a different equation for the both of them.
And I know when we talk about going into HBCUs, but I've talked to so many people who say, well, I used to go to work with my dad when I was in middle school, or this group used to come visit my youth group, and that's how I got connected with them. I can imagine that a lot of people wait until after graduation to make those connections, until after someone is in the workforce. What do you say to companies to say, hey, if you see a young program, a young STEM program, start there? Or would you say that?
Oh, absolutely. It's important that, a lot of companies, and some companies already kind of do this in some way, say like, okay, you may have like a job fair at a particular university, and then some companies may participate in that. But, to your point, it's very important that, like companies start looking like, say at potential STEM employees, like maybe like freshman year, sophomore year, somewhere, early on, and look at the programs that they may be in, they can be able to evaluate and say like, hey, this person could be a top tier talent by the time they graduate in the next couple of years. And so I'm totally agree that companies should, really just focus on students as early as possible and be able to root out talent then.
Are you saying freshman high school, freshman college?
Well, I would say more so like freshman college, because like, high school, it's in my opinion, it's a little hard to determine because they can still, you have students that are on like, that can go to, that are on the STEM path even in high school. And so, but I'm thinking that more so like around like freshman or sophomore year of college, when they, really start getting into what they want to do, and then be able to look at the look at the student pool then.
I shared a article within the BDPA community a couple of weeks ago where we talked about catching our youth while they're dreaming. And that's a critical period to inform, what they see as possible for them. And the way I've kind of experienced it personally, and with the two kids that I have, one that's 15, one that's 1, is that during the last several years, my 15-year-old Maya, she's been really contemplating, where do I want to make my mark in life? And so we've tried to inject STEM-related choices, but also other choices, so that she can, at the end of her high school trajectory, decide, where she wants to make her mark. I do think that companies have an obligation, in fact, to create experiences for the youth, particularly the underserved youth in their backyards, if they want to curate the talent for them to have accessible to them. I mean, I grew up in Florida. Decatur grew up in North Carolina. Chandria grew up in Georgia. So it's a pretty significant. And I don't know where my other colleague where he originated, but many HBCU hires, particularly from the Midwest, didn't grow up in the Midwest. They were transplants to this area, and so it's art to sustain them. I mean, not having that deep family system to support their kids and their evolution. So companies, it has to be an and. It has to be cultivate your backyard and recruit talent from afar for you to have enough opportunities, enough shots on goal to meet your diversity hiring targets.
And I think go ahead, Chandra.
I was going to say, in addition to what everyone else has shared, absolutely, Terry's right. Companies do have an obligation, and there are organizations that they can partner with. Obviously, Terry is the national president of BDPA. That's one organization that helps to basically create that pipeline from the classroom to the room very early on, as early as 6th grade, so middle school. I think the earlier we can get in front of students, the better. I think back to, when we used to have career day when we were in school, and, parents would come and they would say what their careers were. There weren't many really that were talking about, hey, I'm a technology professional, right? We primarily heard about, doctors, lawyers, teachers. And so I think as technology professionals, we individually, within our sphere of influence, we can certainly go and be that face, in particular to the underserved, so that they can see other people that look like them in these professional careers. And then the second part, that companies absolutely should be partnering with organizations, and there's a number of them, NESB, there's MEPI within our community, and of course BDPA. So there are opportunities certainly on all fronts to minimize this particular gap.
And just piggybacking off of some of what you said, I really like you said, Terry, catch youth while they're dreaming. And so often I've gone out and talked to people, and kids are like, how do you even get into that job? How do you do that? Even for me as a journalist, I have friends in college. How do you even get on TV? Like, people have no clue, because if it's not in front of them, they don't see the pathway to getting there. And so I know for me growing up, my dad would always say, I'm raising doctors and lawyers and such. And for the longest, I thought I had to be a doctor or a lawyer. And then he said, no, I want you to have a career. But, you know, so I think it's important to, even at a young age, start to expose kids, because I know for me, I decided in 7th grade that I wanted to do news as early as 7th grade. And like from the path on, you know, I've been able to do that. Now, granted, all kids don't know what they want to do that early, but just talk about the value of parents, people, or just anyone. Just, hey, if you see a kid, talk and say, hey, so what do you want to do when you grow up? I know that might be cliche, but just how valuable is that conversation that early on in the game?
Yeah, I would say, as Terry said, when you're dreaming, the mind is impressionable. And many times a kid will only say they want to be something that they can see. So if they never see it, then it's hard for them to even dream of being in it. It is our job as parents, as community leaders, friends, or whatever, it's our job to present those opportunities, help them to explore. I don't want to be an astronaut. Okay, but you can do other things with numbers. You can build. You can be an architect. You can do these. All of these fields in STEM you can be. I think many times there's been myths about if you're in IT, you have to code. You have to sit at the computer all day. Let's dispel that. STEM is an umbrella, but within STEM, there's so many other opportunities. I mean, you can work in healthcare and still be in IT. You can work as an architect. You can build homes. You can build buildings. You can do so much. And I think that's what's been absent. It's the education behind STEM-related careers. But I do think it's our job in these fields to show students and to show the little ones behind us, this is a possibility. Because many of them are just absent of what the possibilities are. Now, we're coming up in a generation where they're doing a great job at creating their own, but why recreate something that's already working? We just need to build upon what's there. So as a responsibility, as leaders, as parents, we have to provide our students, our kids, with the education and the science behind the science, and help them to understand that STEM, STEM, is just not a 4 occupational word. It's an abundance, an array of opportunities. You just got to tap in, and when you tap in, the world of IT, the world of science, the world of mathematics, engineering, all that opens up. And so it's our job to communicate and carry that message so that the landing lands very rich on the ears of our young people.
Absolutely. And just real quick to just piggyback on my Aggie pride and sorority sister, she's always saying some very profound things. And in particular, if we look at just our panel alone, so thinking about technology and STEM just outside of coding, our panel, I mean, let's just talk about what we do briefly. You know, we're all in technology. However, like for me, I help to onboard new early career professionals and expose them to educational opportunities within IT, learning about the organization so that they can accelerate their career. I'm not coding, but I love what I do. Right? I have code. Marcus, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I mean, most of my day-to-day is coding, software engineering, that type of thing. But I'm also an SB mentor, and that's one of the big things that I've always wanted to make sure I did throughout my career, because I know going throughout my career or prior to it starting, people have helped me out. They've mentored me, and I wanted to ensure that I did the exact same thing as I go through mine. It's like, I don't want to just like go in and just do my day-to-day tasks and then go home. I know that there are people out here that need like help and they need guidance, and I always wanted to make sure I put myself in situations where I'm a part of organizations or part of groups to be able to help build the next generation, because as Decatur said, we have everything right here. The foundation is there. We just have to continue to build upon it.
Awesome. And so I know I didn't know if anyone else wanted to just toss out what their specifics were, since we were saying just how diverse STEM related fields could be.
Yeah, I would say, I've coded, I've managed, I've, been in service management, I've been in vendor management, I've been in change management, I've, worked as part of trial processes. So I have done an array of jobs and none of them have been the same. And there's so many more to explore. So that's the beauty of IT. In any given role, on any given day, you're able to do something different, still considered IT. And so that would be my experience. From metrics reporting to data trend analysis, all those things go up under the STEM and IT related careers. So it's a broad spectrum, Terry.
While I'm in HR currently, I spent 20 years in the IT area, and Lilly recently changed its name of IT to Information and Digital Solutions, really acknowledging that this is an evolving continuum where it's now focused on digital, and that's really a broad space. But the core of what we do is solutions. And I'd offer that orientation of solutions and helping our kids and future those who might have interest in IT and or digital experiences or STEM more broadly, helping them to begin to think about these tools and technology from that solution orientation versus consumption. We get consumption, check, we do that well, but shifting to think about how do you use this stuff and the knowledge and the tools and the gadgets to help solve the problems of tomorrow. That's our opportunity, and that's how we can get a seat at the biggest tables available to us.
And I can imagine, just switching gears here, I can imagine when you're recruiting a diverse talent, there's sometimes can be a question in the back of their minds. Am I going to be valued? Am I going to be compensated properly? For years, we saw disparities in payment based on ethnic backgrounds. If you're a woman versus being a man, talk about why it's important for businesses to value those education and value that employee just as much as someone who might have gone somewhere else, to make sure in the recruitment process you don't, I guess for lack of a better word, try to shortchange recruits.
I think that, it goes beyond just compensation. Because when you're trying to bring in recruits, I remember we were talking about this earlier with regards to not only bringing the person in, but also retaining them. We have to ensure that whatever we bring in a potential candidate to do, we have to make sure that they are challenged enough in what they're doing. Is find it as whatever it is they wanted to do. Make sure we find something that they're challenged on. They feel like they're challenged, and also to me the compensation is. And to your point, I mean, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. That's like compensation will fall into place, but we have to make sure that we have a candidate that that they do what they want to do, that they're challenged enough, and they feel like we're not just going to bring you in to do some menial tasking or whatever. And so it's like it's all those things to make sure we bring in the person to do what they want, do what they would like to do, and also to retain them in the long run.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I do think that many companies, not all, many companies have systems and processes that have increased their assurance of pay equity. Now it's still a bit of art, but let's start with that expectation that there's pay equity. And I would dare not consider working for a company that has declared that as its intent. But equally important, if not more important to me, is having a sense for the culture. Is this a company that has systems, processes, and moreover an expectation of inclusion throughout the culture? I mean, the companies that I've chosen to work for, I've had experiences where I felt affirmed that I would fit into that world. And I would encourage anyone in this day, particularly Black talent, that's been highly sought after by most companies at this point, take the time to be affirmed that that's a world that will value you for what you bring and help you to advance to where you want to go. And if you don't feel affirmed that you will get that there, and then don't settle, because there's another door that's waiting for you to pursue that will value what you bring and help you get to where you desire to be.
That's right. And I would echo to say that the more an individual realizes their value, the more critical it is for the company to realize their value, because there's the possibilities now are endless. Many people are taking quiet time and down moments to upskill, to build on, and to create a tool set that they're able to be transferred anywhere. And so if an employee or employer does not value an employee, they now have flight risk, okay? Because this person now can truly navigate their career by jumping to another company very easily. The work is there, the laborers are needed, and definitely the skill set to propel us into the next generation is needed. Many times it's those employees who feel undervalued that they will make a quick pivot and take another company, sometimes competitors, to that next level because the former company would not take a chance. And I think a lot of times this is the difference between taking a chance on someone and then taking a risk. When you're taking a risk and when you're taking a risk or taking a chance, there's a probability of success there. And for many people that know their value, I'm not asking you to take a chance. I'm asking you to place a bet on me. And if I am with an organization that cannot take a bet on me, then you don't have full confidence and faith in me. And so therefore, I don't think you value. And I'm going to go somewhere else and just show you how much value I bring. And so I think it's critical for companies to, definitely look at their workforce and really determine who are my star players, who are my bench players, and try to bring those bench players and still refilling the pipeline at all times. Because if we become stagnant and just go with what our norms have been, we're going to stay in the same place. Value is a key driver, not just for businesses, but for the people that work for those businesses.
And Terry, this may be something you can chime in. We've seen a lot of companies moving to hire people like diversity and inclusion officers, or people who take a focus on racial equity and things of that nature. How important are those kinds of collaborations when you're talking about a company that has no history of ever implementing that and they're trying to enter into this diverse world on their own? Talk about the value of having someone to collaborate with or bounce off ideas or get suggestions.
Yeah, there is a rise in interest in having leaders and functions that take this work on as a business objective. You're seeing a little bit of musical chairs happening with the experience in chief diversity officers. So the market is certainly seeing the need for this capability in its doors. Just having it doesn't mean success, though. So I will say it has to get integrated in the systems and processes and expectations, and the leaders that sit in that seat, that hold that title, have to be bold enough to challenge the status quo. And if not, then expect to not see results. I think the companies that are bullish about progress, that see this work as I'm okay with you doing this work because it's the right thing to do, because you saw it and it looked like it was wrong. But I also need you to do this because it's a business imperative. You see it as part and parcel to the success of your enterprise, because both of those are critical for it to be sustained. And I see a movement where that's the language more companies than not are speaking. And it's my hope and prayer that both of those dimensions are sustained, that the head and the heart are in this. And my expectation is that if that's sustained, we'll see the type of results that have been elusive to us.
And we have about 5 minutes left. So I wanted to just go backwards a little bit more. We talked about the value of an HBCU education and the duty of employers to recruit. But I'm going to ask you a personal thing. Confidence in HBCUs, confidence in what that has done for you as you go off into the workforce, and how has that confidence built in you at your HBCU and given you the power to move into the workforce? And I'll kind of go with whoever would like to go first, but I can also just pick and choose.
Well, I can start. So essentially what did it for me was going to an HBCU and talking to everyone, like to my professors and mentors, everyone in my comp sci department, and knowing that, from everything that we have had all these different conversations about, like, the type of careers that they had, because not all of them weren't just strictly focused on, being professors. I mean, many of them had separate careers in IT before eventually, becoming professors. And so being able to talk to them and, and sharing and them sharing with me, like, look, the stuff that you literally have to do when you go out here in this workforce. And I remember one professor in particular, he said, like, look, the main things you have to do, and especially as a Black man going into the IT field, is you have to produce. I mean, and you have to produce, like, pretty much, just constantly, and just do your thing, like, as much, and essentially as best as you possibly can. And having those talks, and and after I got my degree, I was like, I don't get me wrong, I was certainly nervous going out there, because you always like had a little thoughts like, okay, what if I go out here, first job, potentially fail at something, but the stuff that I've learned over my time at the HBCU, like, pretty much helped me to kind of overcome that initial, like, fear, and and I just beyond thankful that just being in that type of environment, having professors being able to share their experiences with me, and that built my confidence up fully.
Yeah, and I'd say, just speaking as a woman, I think that in terms of confidence, the most beautiful thing that you can put on is confidence. And I think having my HBCU experience at the Florida A&M University has absolutely added to the level of confidence that I have. They certainly me about continuing to be self-aware, right? And I think, as Decatur mentioned, continuing to build that. And so I've done things to make sure that confidence continues to stay high and continue to soar even higher. So absolutely, I attribute that to the foundation that was laid on the highest of Seven Hills back in 1997 to 2001 at Florida A&M University.
And I would say,
so we're going to try to be quick, but I'll let you go. I'm letting you go.
No, I would say for me, it was a confidence booster, because I walked into ENT and walked into other companies after that because I was the answer. HBCUs was the answer. The origination of HBCUs were the answer to kind of level the playing field, so African Americans can have a place for education. So my confidence is in, I have always been the answer, and that's what I pride myself on as I continue in my career.
All righty. Real quick, Terry, if you wanted to chime in.
These HBCUs focus on building excellence, and they do it well. They've done it well for 100 years, and they will continue to do it well. So they are a essential part of the success of this country and the democracy that we've all valued from.
Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful panel. Thank you all for taking the time. Everybody tuning in. I hope you pulled something from this. So once again, thank you, Marcus Johnson. Thank you, Chandra Seaton. Thank you, Decatur Webster. Thank you, Terry Morris. Thank you, InnoPower, for bringing this on. And I hope you guys have a great day and you're able to pull some quick little nuggets from this.
Yes.